It's a Monday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hartwig, and we are pleased to be joined on the YSN hotline by one of the best baseball writers that the city of Cleveland has. She covers the Indians for MLB.com. She is Mandy Bell. We're calling this segment Mondays with Mandy. Is that all right with you, Mandy?
Oh, that's fantastic. I'll take that.
Hey, under the circumstances, obviously, we should be well past the halfway mark, and the Indians should be in first place by a handful of games over Minnesota. Unfortunately, we live in a COVID world, and we're not going to be starting the season until next Friday. But under the circumstances, how is summer camp going in Cleveland?
Honestly, it's been going pretty well. I mean, I think that they're running as smoothly as they possibly can during all of this, and you can see the adjustments on a daily basis that they've taken. I know they've always had team meetings every morning, and that's typically where Terry Francona will name an MVP from the day before. I guess it's a camaraderie thing that they have for their like their spring training or summer camps or wherever they may be preparing for the season. Now, because they can't gather in large groups, they do that out on the field before each game, and they talk about the guy from the night before, and they give them a nice $100 bill right on the spot as their reward, and they make sure to keep their distance. So they're taking it super seriously, as we all are. Media has a whole bunch of different guidelines to be following, and everything seems to be going smoothly, at least here so far, which has been nice to see.
Franmil Reyes got a life lesson as he went to a 4th of July party, did not have a mask on, and he wasn't shamed. And I love the Indians organization for not really ripping into Franmil because it was an honest mistake where he wasn't social distancing with a mask on, and they didn't rip him. They didn't say anything negative. They just, it's a life lesson. And I think to Franmil's credit, he learned an awful lot as well. And I thought the Indians handled it extraordinarily well.
I thought they did too. Like you said, they didn't shame him. They didn't point fingers. They didn't get angry. They just wanted to use it as a learning experience. And I think that doing it in that way allowed everybody to benefit from it. I know Franmil, whenever he came back, he was super apologetic. Like Tito says, he seems like a really, really great and honest guy, and that was just a complete honest mistake on his behalf, and he admitted that, and he said that that's not something that he'll ever do again. But Tito even was talking about how this was a learning experience that he used, and not to make Franmil look bad, but to use that with the rest of the team and say, look, this is how serious we have to be this year, and it's different and it's difficult, and we get that, but if this is what's going to happen outside of the ballpark, then we have to make sure that our guys here at the ballpark are going to be safe and protected, because everyone wants to have this season get played in its entirety. And the Indians are doing everything they can to make sure that their squad stays safe and healthy. So it was a really good learning experience for everybody.
As you said, it's a learning experience for everyone, the team, and what have been some of the adjustments the Indians have had to make on the fly in the last kind of week as they go into this summer camp?
You're saying like health-wise, or
anything? The way they go about things. Has there been anything where they've thought it was going to go one way and they've had to make adjustments on the fly to kind of change what they're doing?
Yeah, mostly it's just been going day by day to see how guys have been feeling. I mean, obviously with only 3 weeks in preparation as a full team on field workouts and stuff, you have to ramp guys up quickly, but you have to make sure that you're not pushing them too far. So they've been trying to have these inter-squad scrimmages based on the pitchers that are going to be throwing that night and how stretched out they are right now. The game length is based on how many innings they need to see. And the Indians are very clear in how much they're monitoring their position players in that time period. So if they don't think a certain position player is going to be ready to go for that type of a length, and then they make sure that they sit them out, or they have other guys play in. So if as an example of just going on the fly and just adapting, they had their team interpreter starting in left field last night to make sure that they had a body out there, but not putting out the wrong guys who may not necessarily have been ready to do that much activity just yet. So they've been just trying to do whatever they can to make sure that their pitchers are ready, while balancing just easing their position players into. So it's been a whole balancing act, but they've been able to adjust so far.
Mandy Bell talking Indians, and you can see Mandy's work at MLB.com. If you follow the Indians, you definitely know who Mandy Bell is, a very talented writer. She joins us on the YSN hotline. Mandy, you broke the story over the weekend that Tito is leaning into the direction of wanting to use Lindor in the third spot of the lineup, which I think is a brilliant decision, mainly because Cesar Hernandez and Oscar Mercado can be the leadoff hitter or the second hitter. You also have Jose Ramirez, who can be used in the 1 or the 2 spot. My thinking is Cesar Hernandez and Oscar Mercado would be 2 really good table setters for a middle of the lineup that would include Lindor, Ramirez, Domingo Santana, Carlos Santana, Franmil Reyes. All of a sudden, this 1 through 7 spot in the lineup could be really good over a 60-game stretch.
Yeah, it's crazy. A year later, what 2 guys and even 3 with the rise of Oscar Mercado can do for this lineup. I know going into last season, that was the big talking point: was does the lineup have enough depth to be able to score enough runs to be able to compete this season? And now we're starting to look at it. You plug in Hernandez at the top. You have Franmil as a power force in the middle, and whether Mercado slides in up at 2 or it goes down at 9 and just turns over to the top of the order, I think that they're pretty set. Just depth-wise, it starts to look a lot better than the situation they were in going into last year, which I'm sure is way more comforting for their coaching staff heading into this season.
And you were talking about Mercado sliding down to 9, the wild card in all of this, and he's healthy due to the ACL injury from last year, and that's Tyler Naquin. Naquin could be a darn good number 2 hitter.
He could, and I mean, the season that he had last year, it just made it all the more frustrating for him to have to cut it short. He was having his best and healthiest, obviously, season since his rookie year, and he was really settling in nice. He was down at the bottom of the order last year, and he was just a really great bat to have down there. I know he was very happy with the way his season was going. The Indians were very pleased with what they saw from him, and so if he can pick up where he left off, he's another bat that can get added in there, and that just keeps extending that depth throughout that whole batting order.
Coming into a normal season, the Indians' rotation wasn't exactly the healthiest bunch in the world, but now that they've had a lot of time to get healthy, what's the rotation look like going into the season now?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have Bieber as your number 1, Clevenger's number 2, Carrasco's 3, and then 4 and 5, assuming they stick with a 5-man rotation from out the gate. It's going to be between Plesac, Savali, and Plesko. You have those 3 right now. It looks like Savali might have a little bit of the edge to sneak in and be the lock in that, and then you have Plesac and Plesko trying to battle to see who would be in the rotation and then who maybe gets put in the bullpen to start the year. But they have the depth there, and even after losing somebody like Corey Kluber over the offseason, Trevor Bauer at the deadline last year, just been so impressive to watch them just churn out their talented starting pitchers. It's a really, really mind-blowing to think how long that deep that pipeline truly is. But yeah, it looks like it'll probably, it's my guess right now would be it's going to come down to Plesac and Plesko fighting it out for that 5th spot.
Now, if we go to Eastlake, the home of the captains, where we find Tristan McKenzie. Now, obviously, in a normal situation, if Tristan had pitched last year, he would probably be a much more viable candidate. But because he didn't pitch last year, I don't know. Do the Indians try to give him a little bit of an opportunity to pitch on the major league level? And if they do, I mean, does the clock start in this 60-game season if he gets called up to the majors?
Right. I mean, I think that there's a lot to figure out there. And I think that a lot of it will just come down to the health of their rotation. Honestly, if I don't think they even worry about that, just bringing him up if the rotation stays healthy. It just seems like why put him into a situation where he hasn't pitched in a game since August of 2018, and then throw him into the middle of a season where it seems like every single game counts and every single game is a must win, because you only have 60 games this season. So I think at this point you try to just rely on your guys that you have, because they do have such a strong rotation. But I mean, Tristan McKenzie is an arm that they're excited about. It's one that has a lot of upside, and obviously he's been in their top 30 prospects for as long as they've had him, and the excitement is there. And if they needed to dip into that, they have him there, and I'm sure he's getting tired of facing his teammates and having just inter squad scrimmages for however long he's been just trying to rehab and get back. But to me, I don't think this is the year that he comes up, but he's certainly going to be an option if push comes to shove and they get in a crunch situation.
Mandy, is there any chance that Tito does a Tampa Bay in that maybe he starts with the back of the rotation, he starts with a reliever for an inning and then goes to the starting pitcher? Or are we just going to go strictly starting pitching? Because it seems to me you don't do that with Bieber, Clevenger, or Carrasco, but with the other two, maybe the thought process is that you can get away with doing that.
Honestly, I mean, it's definitely going to be an option, and I'm sure they're weighing every single possible strategy to find the most success for this type of a unique situation. But I don't see it happening with this type of rotation. It just seems like they have so much confidence and trust in all of their guys. And like you said, it's not something that they're going to even mess around with when you have guys like Bieber, Clevenger, and Carrasco in the top three spots of your rotation. But even with Savali, I mean, the depth that he just gave them last night in his first inter-squad appearance of the summer, I mean, he already almost reached 100 pitches. The work that he put in over the last 3 months of the quarantine process, that was one of the first things Tito talked about, was how impressed he was with Plesac and Savali, both the young guys, just how prepared they came into summer camp and how well they maintained their arms during this process. And it just seems like they're all stretched out and really ready to go, that I don't even know if they'll need to start considering those types of options.
When you look at the Indians' schedule, I mean, they start their first three series are Royals, Tigers, and White Sox. You got to imagine when you're looking at that, those first three series are put at a premium to come out of those with 7 or 8 wins at least, to kind of put them in a good position to go into the meat of their schedule. There are a lot of really formidable opponents after those first three series.
Yeah, I mean, you start looking at their schedule as a whole, and I know it's a completely new year and teams are different from last year, but if you look at just the records of these teams from last season, the Indians' schedule would be the second easiest in the majors, with the Twins having the easiest, quote unquote easiest schedule based on the team's records from last season. So yeah, I mean, they're in a good spot. They're playing all against the Central for 40 games against the AL Central, 20 games against the NL Central. I mean, it looks like that they're setting up for a nice little run. It seems like they have the depth to be able to get through a 60-game season like this if there are any bumps and bruises along the way. And I mean, they're really, it seems like, heading into the year in a good spot to make some sort of a run.
Mandy, before we let you go, and again, Mandy Bell from MLB.com, kind enough to join us in the 2 o'clock hour on the YSN hotline. Before we let you go, the rosters are going to expand the first part of the season, and I'm curious, where does Bobby Bradley fit into this? Because it seems to me that this guy, if you expand the rosters, Bobby Bradley could be one terrific pinch hitter in the latter stages of the ball game, or give Santana or whoever a blow over at first base every once in a while.
I know it's tough. Bobby Bradley's one that it just seems like I get tweets about the most. It's a tough situation for him because he's just like the odd piece out in this setup that the Indians have right now. So when they split up their camp between Progressive Field and Lake County, everyone at Progressive Field seemingly would be competing for a spot on the 30-man, and then you have everyone else at Classic Park who necessarily is not as much in the running. And to have Bobby Bradley start in Lake County, it seemed shocking at first, but then you start thinking about it, and Santana's obviously locked up at first, and then you have both Domingo Santana and Franmil Reyes who will get the majority of the time at DH. They'll be splitting it back and forth between who's in the outfield and who's the DH, and so it just seems like it would be a spot that would be taken up just solely, like you said, on maybe like a pinch hit opportunity late in the game if they would need it. And I don't know if that's something that they wanted to carry. I don't know if that's what went into their thinking, but it just seems like that defensively he wouldn't really have anywhere to fit in at this point. And if you're going to spell Santana, which I know he's somebody who would beg and beg to make sure that he's in every single game, you have Jake Bowers if he would make it. You also have someone like Mike Freeman if he would make it, who can play some first for them as well. So it just seemed like he was the odd man out in this weird jigsaw puzzle that they have going. But I know they're still excited about his future, and maybe in the next year or two he'll be able to find a more permanent role. But for now, it just seems like it was hard to fit him in.
It speaks for the talent that this ball club has, and I'm excited because I think if Cleveland can find themselves into the postseason, there could be all kinds of interesting stuff happening. Knock on wood, pray that we have baseball all year long from this point.
Absolutely. I know. I think everyone's holding their breath and crossing their fingers and doing everything that we can to try to make sure that everyone stays safe and healthy so we can have this full season.
Mandy, before we let you go, and if I promise this is the last question, what is the latest? What's the latest on the Indians organization in terms of their moving forward with possibly a new name? Maybe they're talking about just leaving the name as is. What's the latest with the possible name change?
The latest is that we've heard from them is just their statement that they put out, oh goodness, what was it, 2 weeks ago now, saying that they're starting to have those discussions, and they're open to having the discussions about figuring out the best path forward for their nickname and the organization as a whole. I know with the Redskins going on today and everything that was changing with Washington, I know that a lot of people are now starting to look to the Cleveland organization saying, okay, well, this happened so quickly. Now what's that mean for you guys? From that perspective, I mean, we haven't heard any more updates from them, but I know that everyone that we've talked to on the team, Tito, players, everyone is saying that they really want to listen and they want to figure out what's the best thing to do. So I think they're having as many conversations with all the right people to try to figure out exactly what would be the best situation for them. I just don't know how quickly this will transpire.
Cleveland Bell sounds good.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And Mandy, always a pleasure. Look forward to catching up with you later this summer. And I guess we have to stay 6 feet away from each other in the press box.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
All right. Thank you so much. Mandy Bell from MLB.com. She does a fantastic job covering the Indians and